Very good evening. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Kritsween Walia. Viewers, keeping in line with his promise to send back illegal immigrants, President Donald Trump's administration flew 104 Indian illegals in a C-17 military aircraft. The aircraft made a landing in Amritsar last evening, but what took internet by storm and was shortly after used by several opposition leaders in taking on the central government were pictures of the deportees' hands and legs being shackled throughout their journey on board this American military plane. Many of these deportees also shared their ordeal by recalling the difficulties they had been put through the last few months of their journey abroad and during the donkey route, which is, remember, an illegal immigration pathway used by their travel agents to take them to the United States eventually. But that's one aspect of the story, viewers. The other aspect was raked by the opposition MPs both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha earlier today. From questioning the friendly ties with US to seeking answers on the inhumane treatment meted out to the illegals deported to India, the opposition went all guns blazing, and this, viewers, prompted a sharp response from the External Affairs Minister. Mr. S Jaishankar put a few facts on the table and said it was the obligation of the government to take back its citizens apprehended abroad for staying illegally, as he also emphasized on the need to encourage legal immigration. In fact, while addressing the upper house of the parliament, the External Affairs Minister confirmed that deportees were cuffed throughout the journey but mentioned that women and children were not restrained. Basically, while reacting to the handcuff controversy, the minister said that the standard operating procedure for deportation by aircraft provides for the use of restraints. He further said that the process of deportation was not a new one and has been there for several years. However, the External Affairs Minister added that he would engage with US authorities to ensure that the deportees are not mistreated on their way back home. In fact, much before addressing both the houses, the External Affairs Minister also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. But there's a lot of politics that is taking place, a lot of back and forth that we've seen essentially over the same. While the Prime Minister did not speak about it when he addressed Rajya Sabha, the External Affairs Minister answered all of those concerns which were raised by members of parliament through the day, not to forget the symbolic protest that was staged by them, and yet we see opposition continue to raise several of these concerns. So where do the facts really lie, and what really is the politics all about, keeping in mind the larger Indo-US relationship, especially when it comes to Trump's announcement on the tough immigration policy? We'll talk about all of that, but first up, the sharp response that came in from External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar.
So the process of deportation is not a new one. I repeat, not a new one. Honorable Chairman, sir, we are, of course, engaging the US government to ensure that the returning deportees are not mistreated in any manner for deportation by aircraft used by ICE. That is effective from 2012. I repeat, that is effective from 2012. Provides for the use of restraints. This is applicable to chartered civilian aircraft as well as military aircraft. There has been no change, I repeat, no change from past procedure for the flight undertaken by the US on 5 February 2025.
Let's quickly go across to our guest joining us this evening, Matthew Anthony, spokesperson of the Congress, along with lawyer Ashish Dikshit and Professor Madhav Nalapad, Vice Chair Manipal Advanced Research Group, with us as well. Very good evening to you, gentlemen. My first question is to Matthew Anthony. Matthew, we heard all through the day from the Congress, the DMK, TMC, several in the opposition speaking in one voice once again. Budget session, we've seen a lot of consensus. But that said, there were a couple of concerns which were raised. The External Affairs Minister intervened and, he sought time to speak and address all of those concerns. And yet we see the opposition not quite happy. Why? The EAM says this is a part of the regular standard operating procedure. Just doesn't apply to India. It applies to any country where illegals are being sent back.
Good evening to all, and thank you for taking me in the show. This is the welcome gift of Donald Trump, to Prime Minister Narendra Modi when he is going to the US. The standard operating procedure, yes, it is there. Then the camaraderie, which is expressed by a Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi saying that Donald Trump is a friend, why our countrymen has to go through this harassment? Why a military aircraft is being used when a civilian aircraft could have been used for this? So the humiliation for our people, and remember that we have close to around a 7,25,000 illegal immigrants in the US as per some numbers from certain corners, from certain media reports which we are seeing. And we only have around 100 plus which has come in. So what are we going to do? What is our government going to negotiate with them? We are one of the largest trade partners for them. We are one of the largest technology service providers for them. A lot of GCCs for the US companies are being here. So how are we going to negotiate with the US government for our people? They might have gone through an illegal, or they might have been cheated. They might have gone through an illegal channel for their ambition, for their position. The mistake will be there, but how are we going to handle this? What is our negotiation policy? And are we going to take all this humiliation for all the people who are going to be
No, but they
deported
ought to be sent back, Matthew. That's one thing. It's very clearly been laid out by the External Affairs Minister as well. There's no second thinking to this. They will have to be sent back, and that's the policy that India has also followed with everyone who is residing in India without legal documents. And illegal in India is also going to be deported eventually.
Fair enough, accepted argument. But do you want them to be humiliated like this, handcuffed like this? Can't they be sent in a civilian aircraft? Just like any other civilian is being sent back. Why do they need to
Okay,
send
the handcuff issue, part of the restraint has been addressed, Matthew. It's been addressed by the External Affairs Minister. It's not exclusively been applied. It's not been exclusively applied to India. There's no, there's no situation here between India and the United States which reflects poorly on what it's going to be going forward, because the External Affairs Minister said whatever the rules of deporting these nationals to India is applicable to other nationals as well. So I'm just reiterating that because it applies to one and all, regardless of their nationality. But yes, to come to your point about a military aircraft, we've not seen that happen, Ashish, for the longest time. We can't recall when in history did it happen, especially when it comes to Indians. We've never seen a military aircraft carry these nationals back. So why this, and what explains this kind of a decision that was taken by the Donald Trump administration?
Good evening to everyone. See, before coming to that, I must state that deporting someone and what procedure has to be followed is dependent on the administration of the country which is deporting. We as a country cannot guide them or instruct them that you are deporting someone who's ex facie illegal resident, and you should follow the procedure or the request which we are recommending. The US has a procedure which is well established. The rules clearly say that.
No, but this is unusual, Ashish. That said, using a C-17 to fly out some of these Indian illegal immigrants is unusual and costly, both.
See, it may look graphically something which is uncomfortable, but if the US government has rules to back that, because it is not on the expenses of that individual he's coming back. He is coming back on the expenses of US government. So the US government is going to decide that what would be the manner by which that person would be sent. Imagine someone who's living in a country illegally. A government has to bear the expenses of even deporting them outside the country, and we are expecting them to give us as a citizen, we may not like it, but please, as a legal situation, we have to understand that this is something which has to be taken care by the rules of the US government. Diplomatically we may exchange, but I as a legal person can only analyze whether this is something which is illegal or not permissible in US law or in international law. Handcuffing is a gray area. It should have been avoided because these are not the people against whom there are criminal charges. Law provides that there are people against whom there are criminal charges, they can be easily handcuffed. But people against whom there are no criminal charges pressed, the administration could have easily avoided. But if you look into this situation, that a person who is admittedly an illegal immigrant, he is being transported back at the expenses of
but
the
even
US
as far as the shackles are concerned, the External Affairs Minister did say that use of restraints are part of the SOPs. The only one thing that stands clear, Ashish, is that children and women were not handcuffed. So that's a little bit of a relief.
They ought not to be, but even in the case of a male, the discretion was available with the officials if there is no criminal, if there is no case or which the person was not involved in any crime, I am not aware whether all these people were involved in any crime. So if they were not involved, obviously they should have given them basic respect of this kind, that okay, shackles are not
Okay.
required. But as far as the manner in which they would be sent and the mode by which they would be sent is solely at the discretion of the US government. And see, they are the one who are paying for the money, or whatever the cost is to be incurred. The individual is not paying, the Indian government is not paying. It is at the expense of US government.
But actually sending them a biomilitary aircraft is more than 5 times expensive than sending each of these
Maybe they
migrants
wanted
by
to convey a
bio-passenger
message to
aircraft.
all
So
the
there's some
people.
thought that's got into it. I want to go across to
It's
Professor
quite.
Nalapat as well. Ashish, I'll come back to you in just a bit. But before that, here's what I want Professor Nalapat to focus on, and we'll break down all of these exclusive details in the breaking update that we have. This is a CNN News 18 exclusive, viewers. So let's quickly talk about the larger pattern that we've been able to draw here. Intelligence reports reveal sophisticated networks behind illegal migration to America. The scope of investigation will be increased and needs to be stopped at the facilitator level, is what sources are also maintaining. Speaking against India is also propagated by these facilitators so that asylum option can be explored and exercised. And social media profiles are also being created to highlight some of these atrocities against them. Chains and handcuffed individuals sending this message of hardcore criminality, which was already highlighted by Ashish. This is something new this time around. So that's, of course, being thought out here in India. But there is a larger pattern here that has been focused, which is the network just doesn't move by people. They're laundering money, trafficking drugs. They could also enable terrorism if it goes unchecked. So top intelligence sources looking at all of these possibilities, smuggling networks which continue to operate across 50 plus countries with facilitators in India, in Mexico, China, Central America, coordinating these routes. 65% of the intercepted Indian migrants in 2023 admitted to using agents connected to transnational crime rings. And anti-India propaganda, viewers, is also being used to seek asylum. Professor Nalapat, these are slightly dangerous trends. It's a dangerous territory and something that Indian officials are also looking into. We did see a brief response come in from the External Affairs Minister that the larger nexus syndicate industry, illegal immigration industry needs a stricter crackdown. But what do you make of the broader pattern that's emerged?
Yes, Minister Jaishankar is quite right. And as he has said, this has been existing since 2009. And I'm glad that the government is finally alive to the problem and is going to crack down on these agents. Because frankly, a lot of the individuals who are being sent on this donkey route by these individuals, I don't know if it's called donkey route because they're considered to be donkeys or what. But the fact is that ipso facto, when you cross the border into the United States illegally, you're committing a criminal act. So if you argue that they're not criminals, well, unfortunately, as soon as they cross the border, they do become criminal. Now, in the case of Canada, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
In the case of Canada, you have a strong network of individuals who are linked to this so-called Khalistan group. I call it the K group. And this network, unfortunately, is linked to narcotics, is linked to Hawala, and they, as you correctly said, they tutor people as to how to get to Canada. And frankly, when Justin Trudeau is Prime Minister, the easiest way to get to Canada is to claim that you want a breakaway state in India and to claim that you support the K group. So these are facts of life, and I'm very glad that finally action is being taken against these agents, because I'll tell you why. Indians have got such a good name in the US.
Yeah.
They've got such a high reputation in the US because they're professionals, they're doctors, they're engineers. And if you have this kind of identification of illegals with India, it's very damaging for the overall image of India. Just as frankly, this kind of deportation is very damaging to the overall image of the United States. So the way this is being done, frankly, brings very little credit to any side.
Yes.
But having said that, the minister is perfectly right. This is unfortunately legal procedure, and the use of military aircraft. Secretary of Defense Hexel, he was confirmed by the U.S. Senate, so he's now officially secretary. He has got a much broader view of defense, and he believes in this hybrid warfare thing. Illegal agents and the illegals are a weapon of hybrid war, and it is a fact that
Yes.
several individuals who are, PRC, Chinese citizens, have come across, and I'm
But
waiting to
Professor
see.
Nalapat, sorry to interrupt you there, but given that now this has taken the internet by storm, everybody is eyeing what Donald Trump could mean for India, especially when it comes to some of the immigration policies that have been announced by him. He's acting hard and fast on them. He wants to send out a larger message to the world that I meant business when I made these promises, right? But India needs to watch out for this as well, because this could, in the longer run, invite a lot of backlash given the attention that is on this aspect. Surely, illegal immigrants were being sent back earlier as well. We've seen these exercises being carried out every year, but today everyone's looking at it very closely. So, do you think that's a worry for India?
It's definitely a worry for India and more a worry for the United States. India is regarded as a very important partner in the Indo-Pacific, and frankly, in a democracy, goodwill of the people is very important, and these images, frankly, give a very hard knock to US goodwill and to Trump's goodwill. Don't forget that Trump was regarded favorably by more than 2/3 of Indians, the highest number in any country, the highest proportion. I'm sure that is taking a hard knock as a consequence of this. So yes, it is having an adverse effect on India-US relations, and I'm sure the External Affairs Minister will have pointed that out, and I presume that with the strong action against these agencies that send these people across, catch them and hold them responsible, I think that is one way of doing so, because we are for illegal, we cannot be for illegal immigration.
Yes.
We are for legal immigration. And any barrier to legal immigration, we will fight, we will oppose. But we cannot oppose illegal immigration, because we too are opposed to that. I mean, technically, it's a crime in India as well, but unfortunately, this country has nearly 30 lakh.
And this can't be limited to political rhetoric. This can't be limited to political blame game merely. Matthew Anthony, I want you to come in on this, and then a quick comment from Ashish as well. Need to wrap up, but do remember the focus here again shifts on the donkey route, to the United States. It's been a long-standing, well-practiced method used by many individuals seeking to enter United States illegally, and this route refers to various complex and often dangerous pathways taken by illegal migrants from India and other countries. And we'll keep these graphics on our screens. The route via Canada to the United States, via Turkey, via several Latin American, African countries as well. So we'll keep up, with these graphics on our screens. But Matthew Anthony, and no one can wash their hands off this, because we've seen this pattern, this syndicate, this industry, as was being spoken of by the External Affairs Minister, pan-India. Under Congress's watch, during the UPA regime, in several states where the Congress has also been in power, as has the BJP.
It's quite concerning that the Congress is being roped in by the BJP here, whereas the country is being ruled by the BJP from 2014. And I agree that the agencies, the illegal agencies, should be cracked down. There are no disagreements to it. However, I don't agree with the co-panelists, the lawyers' argument that just because the US is paying the flight, they can be treated like anything. There are international human rights practice which has to be maintained while you're deporting. And the civil aircraft could have been used, very well used, with respect. They could have been removed from the chains and shackles after they boarded the flight, because they're not going back to the US. So these are common sense, but why they were insulted till the time they landed in India, why they were shackled and chained inside the aircraft. What was the need for it?
Okay, Professor Nalapat, before Ashish comes in, Professor Nalapat, is that a standard operating procedure? Is that what ICE lays out for America when they're sending back? I'm asking Professor Nalapat. I want a neutral perspective on this. Professor Nalapat.
I want to say that it is technically standard operating procedure, but the Biden administration was having a much more relaxed view on illegal migration and on the treatment of illegals. The Trump administration has a very hardline view, completely opposite view. So technically, yes, it is
Yes.
standard operating procedure, but the question is how much is really implemented in
Okay,
practice.
so going by the rule book, but Ashish, why no relaxation? That's what's being questioned, especially when you're talking about two friendly nations. The two world leaders are going to be interacting in just a few days from now. That's what's being questioned here. This could have been a toned down version of what America says is the legitimate way of going about this.
See, it's like expecting me to, like, I have to respond to someone. What is, if someone has acted as per the rules, and we are saying why that person has not acted as per the rules?
No, but there's
I'm
a reason,
sorry,
Ashish, why none of this has made it to headlines or has been spoken of under the NDA as well previously when the Biden administration was in charge in US, right?
as rightly pointed out by Professor Nalapat, the Biden administration or the other government may have a sympathetic view,
Okay.
but the policy of Trump government, how they have been. This has been the frontline issue for them about deportation, and it's not only sending someone. I think the Trump administration is trying to send across a message that the illegal migration in this country is not to be taken lightly, and it is acting within the four corners of the rules. And for me as a lawyer to say no, they could have modified the law, or they should have broken the law, is not the correct situation. It is. I also feel bad. That's why I said there could have been a lighter way, or they could have exercised this discretion, but they chose not
Okay.
to. We can't blame them for that. And
Okay.
me sitting and you and Congress saying that okay, yeah, this is not rightly done, is not going
Okay.
to change anything, because that is what the decision of
Yes.
US is. Maybe now the
And
external
nobody
affairs
can
ministry
change
has
change
spoken to
what
them. It might
Donald
use
Trump
the
decides
diplomatic
or the manner in which he's thinking. I think there's common consensus at least on that one thing. Gentlemen, that's all the time I have. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Matthew, apologies couldn't come to you. But whether or not this will sour Indo-US ties, whether or not we will see India take this up at the highest level remains to be seen. For now, the facts have been placed by the External Affairs Minister, and we head into a very quick break with that. On the other side, viewers, a very special edition from Mahakumbh. We'll get you that exclusive and also decode the exit polls for you. National capital throwing up a very interesting fight. We'll get the numbers in just a bit. We'll be right back.